Alright, so we're classifying conics today. This is basically like a little diagram that you can use to help you when it comes down to trying to figure out if you're dealing with a circle, a parabola, a hyperbola, or an ellipse. First thing you need to do is look at your variables. Are both of your variables being squared? Do you have an x squared and do you have a y squared? If the answer is no, and only one of them squared, that means you have a parabola. Only parabolas have a squared term. If only one squared term. If both of them are being squared, then you ask yourself, are the squared variables being subtracted? If they are being subtracted, then that means, oops, too far. There we go. If they are being subtracted, as in yes, that means it's a hyperbola. If you look at the standard form for any of the conics, the only one that has a minus in them are your hyperbolas, just like in your problem of the day. So, are they squared? Yes or no? Are they being subtracted? Yes or no? If it's a yes, it's a hyperbola. If it's a no, look at the coefficients of the squared terms. If they're not the same, it's an ellipse. However, if they are the same, it's a circle. And then that's how you basically determine, and that's from any form. That's from standard form. That is from like the form where you know you have to complete the square. That's before you even complete the square. You'll know what type of conic you're dealing with. And the beauty about that too is if you can recognize which one it is, then you know exactly if you do have to complete the square, whether or not it needs to equal 1. Which conics have to equal 1?
Ellipse and hyperbola.
Ellipse and hyperbola. Or you'll know that it has to equal a number, like in circles. If only one term is being squared, then you only have to complete the square one time, and then everything else needs to be on the other side.
And it'd be a parabola, right?
And then it'd be a parabola. But there you go. Everything's summed up in this nice chart.
I like this.
Okay?
That was easy.
Completely.
So this one is a hyperbola. First off, are both terms squared?
Yes.
Yes, so you go further down into the chart. Are they being subtracted?
Yes.
Because they're being subtracted, that makes it automatically a hyperbola. Clear your boards.
Nice.
This one I'll give you a little bit of time to think about. Collectively, nobody picked P, which was correct. Both terms are being squared, but unlike the last, on the ratio, unlike the last two problems, weren't your x squared and your y squared on the same side? That's what you need. Okay, your x squared and your y squared term should be on the same side. So to move that negative x squared over, we would have to what?
Add.
You would have to add it. So then you'll get an x squared plus y squared. Both terms are squared. They're not being subtracted, and they have the same coefficients. So this one should have been a circle.
Wait, the same coefficient in terms of the x's or
In terms of the x and the y squared.
The x squared and the y squared, they have to have
look
the
at
same
the
coefficient.
normal ones. Whoops.
Yeah, don't look at the normal ones.
Okay.
Just the square terms. Okay, clear your boards. Here's the next one.
Oh.
Is it a hyperbola, ellipse, circle, or parabola? Ellipse. Yes.
Hyperbola, those ones that equal 1, right?
Ellipses and hyperbolas are the only ones equal to 1. Now, be very careful with that. Circles can equal 1.
Oh.
They can equal 1, but look at the coefficients. They need to be the same in order for it to be a circle. This one is an ellipse. Okay? One more of these type.
See, baby Jesus.
This one is an H. This is a hyperbole. If you subtract the x squared over to get all your x squares on the same side, when you combine like terms, that's 7y squared minus 13x squared. Both being squared, but since they're being subtracted, it is hyperbole. Okay? We're going to do one of completing the square, identifying what it is, and then completing the square just to make sure you guys are good.
Not completing squares.
So you're going to identify what conic it is, whether it's one of the four, and then I want you to write it in standard form, which means you're going to have to complete the square.
Easy money.
What conic is it?
Parabola.
Parabola, because only one of them is being squared, which means that if you're trying to write this in standard form, your square term needs to be on one side, everything else needs to be on the other side. So that means you'll keep your negative 2y squared minus 20y on one side, and then you'll subtract the others. Then you only complete the square with the y's. Remember, when you complete the square, the first term has to be 1. So that means you have to factor out a what?
-2. Or -2.
A negative 2. When you factor out a negative, this applies with parabolas and also when you're doing hyperboles, is that when you factor out a negative number, this term becomes what?
Positive.
Positive. How do you complete the square?
Divide b by 2 and then multiply by its own or square.
Divide b by 2. What's b? Divided by 2 to get, square it to get.
25.
So I'm going to add 25 here, but on this side I'm going to add a negative 50.
Wait, what?
Because whenever you factor out a number in front, you have to multiply the square by the number on the outside.
Yeah, that's not wrong.
Yeah, you're 49 spots.
Oh, thank you.
That's totally off. I'm like, that's right.
Sorry.
It's okay.
That's something I get wrong.
So now you'll have negative 2. Y plus 5 squared equals negative x minus 1. Now can you leave it like this?
No, because
Standard.
Your squared term needs to be by itself, which means you have to get rid of that negative 2 by doing what?
Multiply or dividing the other side.
Dividing to the other side. So your standard form would be y plus 5 squared equals all of this divided by a negative 2. Now real quick, let's simplify this out. If I divide by a negative 2,
it's all positive.
everything becomes positive, and on top of that, you want your a factored out. So that's what it would be on the other side.
That's the
Oh, I was close. That was my next step.
so the p is what? Like 1/4? No, 1/8.
P would be 1/8.
We have to remember every single form.
All four conic standard forms, yes, but everything else will be given to you. How to find vertices, directrix,
Oh, that's all.
all that stuff will be given. All I'm asking is that you know your standard forms. Okay? Everything else will be given to you. Eccentricities, all of those will be given to you as well. But that's how you identify conics. Questions?
Nope, because I didn't